What's going on, my creatures of the night? No, I did not get a haircut. My hair is simply braided. Anyways, moving forward. Today I'm going to be doing my top 30 albums of all time. Now, in order to keep this video going, and hopefully not have it go too long, I'm going to go through these albums pretty quickly. If you want an individual review on any of these albums, feel free to request on my Facebook or on the comments or Twitter or whatever. So let's get started. Number 30 is Live Dead by the Grateful Dead. This album shows why the Grateful Dead is one of the best live performing bands of all time. They really managed to enhance their live ability to amazing extents with long improvisation, solos, and that true psychedelic sound of that period of time. A time where psychedelic music was pretty popular. Number 29 is Stronger Than Death by Black Label Society. Zakk Wylde is badass. But in all seriousness, Zakk Wylde is one hell of a guitar player, and his voice fits so well with everything else that's going on in this album. Despite what the critics say about the album, I personally think it's quite an enjoyable album. Black Label Society they're a band that's pretty easy to get into. They are not entirely as heavy as bands like Pantera, but they are heavy enough with somewhat of a softer sound to the mix as well that those hard and heavy fans can easily get into them, but at the same time, people who are into that softer kind of rock can also get into their music. Number 28 is Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. You may be wondering why I put this so high up on the list. Well, let's start by saying I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan, but this is not my number one Pink Floyd album. I think they've done work that I've appreciated much more than this album. I'm not saying this album is bad, but this definitely isn't the last of Pink Floyd you'll see on this list. But this album is just essential for progressive rock fans and even classic rock fans. It's really able to take you through the cycle of a human life and human emotions in such a beautiful way. If you ever have 40 minutes of spare time, throw on this album, preferably on vinyl. Number 27 is Liquid Tension Experiment with their self-titled album in 1998. These guys are sort of a spin-off of Dream Theater. Actually, the band, pretty much majority of it is Dream Theater without James on vocals. It's an instrumental album, but it's fantastic. It shows each member's extremely talented skills, whether on guitar, synthesizer, or even drums. Number 26 is Iron Fist by Motorhead. Motorhead is pure against the grain speed metal, and I love them to death. This album showed that they were way more than just your average speed metal band, though. They were able to try other things, but at the same time incorporate that speed metal sound with awesome songs such as Speed Freak. You've got the hard and heavy riffs on the guitar, and yet the very simple yet enjoyable structure of each song. Number 25 is Octavarium by Dream Theater. What can I say about Dream Theater? This album's brilliant. It's a conceptual piece of work. It's got a good variety of the obsessive-compulsive themes of what is Dream Theater. The album basically it's basically somewhat of a summary of everything that Dream Theater has done up until that point. It's got a fine mix of the ballads and the more aggressive, hard-driven tracks. This album's really building up to the masterpiece ending track entitled Octavarium. The song takes you through one hell of an adventure. The first time I heard this album, I was quite mind-blown. It's truly an amazing album. Excuse me. Number 24 is In Rock by Deep Purple. Sometimes you really gotta dig deep into the early roots of heavy metal. Bands such as Blue Cheer, Vanilla Fudge, or Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin. These guys, and Deep Purple, these guys are extremely influential with a perfect mixture of hard rock, blues, and even progressive and psychedelic elements into that hard rock mix. This album is fantastic. It has a fantastic feel of pure hard rock energy. Ritchie Blackmore really helped Deep Purple show their true colors and show us what they were all about by shifting more towards the hard rock feel and slowly getting away from that psychedelic rock sound they had in their earlier work. So with this album, there is no uncertainty, which goes amazing, and in general, it goes amazingly well with Ian Gillan's tremendous vocal range. Not to mention Jon Lord's awesome organ harmonization with everything else that's going on in the album. It's just a classic that I've always enjoyed. I actually have the record. If you watch my vinyl collection video somewhere on my channel, I actually go through my vinyl collection and I pull it out and talk about it a bit. Number 23 is Ride the Lightning by Metallica. Metallica's early work is perfect justification on why I love thrash metal and why metal is awesome in general. This album has so much power, so much aggression. It has a great lineup of songs, and Metallica is truly one of my favorite bands. But remind you, I'm definitely not finished with them. We'll talk more about Metallica further on in the list, but let's talk about this album a little bit. It's got some hard and heavy tracks such as Creeping Death, For Whom the Bell Tolls, and even the song Ride the Lightning. But it has one song called Fade to Black, which really shows that Metallica is more than your ordinary thrash band. This album is such an enjoyable album for me. But yeah, Fade to Black, it goes for that more slower, mellow, or not mellow, depressing ballad kind of feel, but it still has that hard and heavy sound. It's not like hair metal at all. It's awesome in general. Number 22 is Hammerheart by Bathory. Bathory does an awesome job on this album with amazing songwriting and fantastic instrumentation. This album shows an amazing mix of epic, dark, Viking metal as well as more of an atmospheric feel, as they were moving away from more of the black metal sound that they had in their previous work prior to this album. But this album, they can really have that true sound of what is Bathory with that new vibe that they were going for. The vocals sound cool with the imperfections. Imperfections actually make it cooler, with a very melodic guitar to go along with it and wicked reverberated drums. We've also got some choirs to go along with it. That really helps give that the music an atmospheric feel. In general, this is a very enjoyable album for me. I reviewed it early on my channel. It's actually a video I recorded before I made this channel, so there might be some outtakes or imperfections on it, but I do go through the album. Number 21 is Dream Evil by Dio. I almost said Dream Theater for some reason. Yeah, Dream Evil by Dio. Ronnie James Dio is what I consider to be a heavy metal god. He left us a very memorable legacy of awesome music, and he had one of the most powerful voices I have ever heard. May he truly rest in peace, and I hope he will never be forgotten. This album is what I call a classic Dio album, although it was an extremely underrated record. It's got great songs such as Sunset Superman. The thing that really catches me about in this song is the pre-chorus. It's extremely powerful, and it's just building up and building up. The horns go up to Dio once again. Number 20 is Rust in Peace by Megadeth. Megadeth, like Metallica, is essential, not just to thrash metal bands, or not just to thrash metal, but metal in general. This album, it has some awesome, violent, aggressive riffs, and in general, it's got awesome instrumentation, wicked guitar solos. Songs such as Hangar 18 and Holy Wars: The Punishment 2 are just masterpieces. Number 19 is Gutted, Bleed for Us to Live. I discovered this album when a fellow creature of the night requested me to review it, and I loved it. It's pure aggressive death metal, truly a Headbangers album. You can check out my review on it. Number 18 is Reinventing the Steel by Pantera. This was Pantera's final album as a group, and while so many people hate on this album, I thought it was amazing. Phil's vocals on the track are just so aggressive and heavy. Dimebag Darrell can do stuff with the guitar that I've never heard before. This is another awesome Headbangers album. It's got the hard and heavy groove. It's pure against the grain American heavy metal. I mean, what more could you ask for with a Pantera, really? Number 17 is Porcupine Tree with Lightbulb Sun. Porcupine Tree is a unique band for sure. Steven Wilson is a very talented musician, and this album was just beautiful. It's got a mix of so many different moods and genres, but it's truly awesome and is able to tell stories with such deep meaning. Once again, you can check out my review on it. I did a review on it a while back. Number 16 is Depeche Mode's Violator. Depeche Mode, I feel, really peaked with this album. The album has a beautiful mix of rock, goth, electronic, and even alternative. The mood in this album is quite dark, but at the same time very romantic. You hear this through lyrics and instrumentation. Depeche Mode is a very interesting band. They are able to do things such as sing really dark lyrics in a beautiful beautiful form. And it pretty much covers up the dark meaning of the song, which kind of gives it a little bit more eeriness, I feel. Number 15 is Opeth with Deliverance. There's really no band like Opeth. They're quite a unique progressive metal band, and they really showed their best with this album. The long songs, consistent changes within the songs, the stories the music tell, and in general, it's all quite awesome. I'll point out that Blackwater Park is another good album too. Number 14 is Dream Theater again with Awake. This album's just another example of Dream Theater showing their best work at Fourth. In fact, this album takes you to a whole other world. It's very mythical. Number 13 is Nightwish with Oceanborn. Symphonic metal at its best, man. Nightwish is just amazing. Tarja did an awesome job on the vocals on this album. This album's just beautiful. There are amazing songs on here, such as Stargazers, Sleeping Sun. It's got that awesome mix of electric guitars, opera vocals, and various synth pads and synth leads. In general, this album is just amazing. Number 12 is Depeche Mode, again with Songs of Faith and Devotion. This album, it's a bit different than Violator. It incorporates more of a heavier sound than Violator did. They incorporated real instruments along with their synthesizer origins. In general, it's just amazing. It creates a beautiful mix. This album, it truly describes giving your life for something or devoting yourself heavily into something or someone, but it's up to you to interpret what that devotion is. Pretty much the title of the album describes what most of the songs talk about. It's in a way, it's a concept album, which is really cool. Number 11 is Epica with The Divine Conspiracy. Epica is a bit different than Nightwish, I feel, but they're as well unique. They take you to this awesome fantasy world, but with a much heavier feel than Nightwish on Oceanborn. It's actually pretty cool. Number 10 is Darkthrone, A Blaze in the Northern Sky. What can I say, man? Pure black metal. I've reviewed this album in another video already, so I'm just going to say that Darkthrone is awesome. They're one of my favorite black metal bands, next to another band whom I'll talk about for sure. Number 9 is Dream Theater, Images and Words. Again, this is very early Dream Theater work, and again, it's a beautiful album. Number 8 is Mastodon with Crack the Sky. I did a very in-depth review on this album. It's a masterpiece. It's able to tell amazing, mind-blowing stories and go into very deep subjects that really touch the heart. It's such an amazing album. It's really music that speaks to the soul. It's metal that speaks to the soul, which is rare at times. Number 7 is Motorhead with Overkill. Very early Motorhead work, but once again, pure metal. Motorhead is just awesome, and this is some of the earliest we've heard from them. But this album is just a masterpiece, man. Number 6 is Power Slave by Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden is one of the most influential bands of all time. This album was a beautiful piece of work. It's hard and heavy with the great Bruce Dickinson on vocals. You know, it's pure, it's old school metal. I reviewed this album, so I'm not going to go too in depth on it for time's sake, but it's truly an amazing album. Number 5 is And Justice for All by Metallica. I mentioned before that I wasn't done with Metallica. This album is truly Metallica at its highest peak. Lars' drumming was amazing, the writing and storytelling of all the songs on the album was phenomenal, and the musical structure of the album in general is quite awesome. Metallica went for that progressive approach with this album, and it just came out beautifully. That's personally what I feel. I really think it's Metallica at the top of the mountain. Number 4 is Saucerful of Secrets by Pink Floyd. I mentioned before that I wasn't done with Pink Floyd. This album I actually enjoy more than Dark Side of the Moon. It's a very early album done by Pink Floyd. I believe it was 1968 when it came out, and it's a beautiful album. This album leans a bit more towards the psychedelic side rather than the progressive side, although there is some progression in the album. It definitely takes you to a mystical and magical and quite a psychedelic journey. It's quite an enjoyable album. Extremely underrated. Number 3 is South of Heaven by Slayer. This is when Slayer really leaned more towards the darker side of their music. This album, I feel, was Slayer at their edgiest. It's them at the top of the mountain, really. The recording quality was great. The lyrics on this album are beautifully dark, and it's quite fun to listen to, as well as the changing tempos in the music. All in all, it's a great album, and the time that it came out was perfect, because during that time, Slayer was still quite relevant and quite dark and edgy, and something that people were afraid of. And that was really what made Slayer what they were. Number 2 is Mayhem with De Mysteriis Domus Sathanis. I reviewed this album in a previous video, and I really felt that it was Mayhem at its peak. This is an essential album for black metal fans, and it's pure black metal. You know, it's that pure black metal sound. The album was done after the band experienced quite a bit of tragedy, and the fact that they could pull something like this together, it was just absolutely amazing. And number 1, my number 1 favorite album of all time is Iron Maiden, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. This album had so many elements that made it an amazing album. Iron Maiden had really gone for that progressive storytelling approach, which allowed them to have longer, more storytelling songs. But at the same time, they were able to add that progression, or that pure aggression, along with the progression, and that pure aggression is Iron Maiden, so they still had that pure Iron Maiden sound. But on top of that, they introduced some new elements to the music, such as, again, the storytelling and even synthesizers. This album in general is quite a masterpiece. And that concludes my top 30 favorite albums of all time. Every now and then, there will be new stuff added to the list. Once again, I listen to a lot of music, so this is a heavily condensed list. But thank you guys for watching Creatures of the Night. You've managed to stick with me for 20 minutes. Good job, and rock on.